People here, right? Yep.
Control. Oh, you can see you guys.
Yeah, okay.
Hey, we got people coming in.
Wow, oh, you can see all these people. Are you on now? Can you see Bill and Phil?
Yeah. Hey, they're coming in all the time. Okay, we got 29 people, 30.
Oh, great.
Wow.
All right, so why don't we get started? Welcome, everyone. This is the AMC Maine chapter's one of our webinars we've been doing. And tonight, we're going to have Phil Cohn, who's the AMC's Trails Chair, talk about his 2018 Long Trail trip. Phil has asked that we hold till the end to he'll answer your questions. You can ask a question. There's a little Q&A icon on your screen or on the screen for you to ask a question. You can actually, I suppose you could ask it any time, but we'll only answer them at the end. So without any further ado, Phil, why don't you go ahead and start?
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for joining me on this nice sunny evening. It's beautiful outside, and so I'm very appreciative of you being here. A couple of administrative things. Just wanted to mention that on June 3rd, Kerry Kish will be doing his talk on the Florida Trail, and that should be really awesome. I wish I could see it, but I'll be in the Maine North Woods at that time. And on June 10th, we'll be having a webinar about trail work, and that'll be done by Peter Roderick and Kate Johnson. I think that Kate is the lead, and Peter will be talking about of what he does. Yeah. So with that, I just want to talk. So now I'll start talking about my adventure. So some of the fun facts about the trail, it's more than 270 miles long. It's a very muddy trail. It's known as Vermud. It's the oldest long distance trail in the United States. The Green Mountain Club maintains the trails and shelters, and the southernmost overlaps with the AT. My hike, it was such an awesome hike, I tell you. I started September 8th, and I finished, and we went for 21 days. Our longest hike was 20 miles. The shortest hike was 8. And the temperatures ranged between 40s and 70s. And we had a lot of rain. I mean, Vermont is not a desert. It's just a very green and moist area. It was great. So the trail goes north to south through the middle of the state. It starts near Williamstown, Massachusetts, and then runs north to a town near North Troy, Vermont. It was just fabulous. This is my very first through hike, and it was awesome. And Vermont's like such a beautiful state. I haven't really seen much of Vermont, and now what I know much of Vermont is a long line going north to south. But it's such a beautiful area. So on September 8th, we started at 11:20. This is my buddy Dave, and I went to undergraduate school with him as well as grad school, and we're best buds. And I hadn't spent this amount of time with him, and I was a little worried about how everything was going to work out, because I hadn't spent much time with him since grad school, and sometimes, we had, conflicts as most friends do. So I mean, I figured that if things went south, we could say, okay, thank you very much, it's fun, and just part ways. But man, we had such a great time. It was such a fun adventure. It's just we're very compatible, very beautiful. Lots of ponds and marshes and small lakes that we passed. It's known as a green tunnel. So you're mostly walking through the woods. This is a picture that we took that I thought was really cool. I took, um, and what I later learned was, and I'm not sure if this is true or not, but but the Native Americans would tend to bend trees like this to mark the direction of a trail. And I'm not sure if someone who did this to this tree was thinking that way or it just happened naturally, but I tend to think that someone had that intention. So Stratton Mountain, Gene and Hugh, they've been there for well, probably more than 37 years now. They were there when there's a fire tower up there, and they were part of the fire watch. Then when Vermont shut that down, they stayed on, and the Green Mountain Club asked them to stay on to help, be like trail runners to help people out. So they ask you to sign their log, they give you treats, and they tell stories, even do selfies. It was great. There's a fire tower up there. The day we were there, it was kind of cloudy. So the southernmost trail overlaps with the AT, and we had a trail family there for about 3 nights, and then we kind of parted ways, and they went. So 3 of them continued on. But it was just great. A lot of fun people. You learned a lot from them. By the time that the ATers get to Vermont, they know what they're doing. And Dave and I were always watching them, asking questions, and it was great. So we're hiking along in the middle of Vermont. There's nothing around, and we found this like rock garden. It's just, I'm not sure who thought it was a good idea, but they just kept on building rock monuments, and some were very creative. And this picture really doesn't do it justice, but it was beautiful. Killington, Vermont. We stayed up there. There's a lodge up there called Cooper's Lodge, and the Cooper's Lodge, to be honest with you, is in bad shape. The people, these skiers, they tend to they'll go from the trails and hike up to the summit, and then they stay at the Cooper Lodge and trash it. So it's kind of a wreck in there. But we stayed on the platforms, and it was great. As it turned out, many of my friends, they were either runners, triathlon folks, or and some of them do the Spartan War things. The day that we were up there, they were posting pictures at the base of the mountain because they were like about to compete in one of the Spartan competition things. It was kind of fun to be chatting with them and seeing them on Facebook. This couple, so they were starting to hike from Hanover, New Hampshire, and they were just doing a section of it, and so they're going from Hanover to Manchester, Vermont, and then they're going to go home and mow the lawn, then head down to Georgia to do a section down there. It's just like, what I really love about the trail is that there's so many people out there of all abilities, all ages. It's really beautiful. So food, this was my very first through hike, so I spent a lot of time obsessing about food. And I kind of figured out that for the amount of calories I would need, there's all these calculators that you can use. And I think I needed like, somewhere between 48 and 5,400 calories per day. And I'm like, well, you just can't put that much food in your pack and for a week, because at that time I was planning on carrying a week's worth of food. And so I said, okay, well, I'll just go with 4,200 calories per day. And then I would just pig out when I went into town to get my drop box and all that. And that's what we did. I didn't carry a stove. I cold soaked my food. And I would have an oatmeal mixture with nuts and powdered milk. Then I would have a cup of coffee. For lunch, I'd have peanut butter wraps and Nutella. Everyone likes Nutella, right? And for ingredients, for dinner, I kind of came up with some recipes for what I liked that was be a high calorie food meal that didn't weigh much. And it was just great. Snacks, Fritos. I eat a lot of Fritos. Nut mixture, turkey jerky. It's very yummy. But to be honest with you, with the Fritos, I could have mixed it up a little bit more because I got sick of it after a while. More about food. So over the course of the whole trip, I ate 100 sticks of turkey jerky, 8 pounds of Fritos, 4 pounds of oatmeal, and a lot of mixed nuts, excuse me. The failures, so when I did my test run in July, everything was nice and warm, the water was warm. So when I did the Starbucks micro-ground coffee, I mixed it with the warm water because I didn't have a stove, I'm cold soaking everything. Everything mixed in fine. But in the Vermont water, where it's much colder at that time, when I put the micro-ground coffee into the mug, it just formed these little espresso beans. I later learned just to mix the dried coffee with the oatmeal. I had coffee flavored oatmeal, and I don't know, people in New York City pay big bucks for it. Yeah, and the Nutella just couldn't get out of the packets. So again, I kind of, for the dinners, I kind of bought, freeze-dried ingredients, freeze-dried tomatoes, freeze-dried chicken, spinach. I would buy dehydrated ingredients as well, corn, garbanzo beans. I just would come up with these great recipes. The winter of 2017, I spent just coming up with recipes and saying, will I like this, in September? And, I didn't want to I want to eat well, I want to eat healthy, but if it doesn't taste good, then you're just gonna be miserable. It was very good. Fritos, I tell you, it's a perfect food, really. It's about 160 calories per ounce, which is a very high calorie food. And it's just 3 basic ingredients: corn oil, and salt. Snack after snack of Fritos over the course of 21 days, well, got a little old. And the way that I did my food isn't the way that many people do it. Many people will either just buy the commercial off-the-shelf freeze-dried ingredients and send it to them, and that turned out to be, and that's a very expensive way of doing it. Other times, people will just go into town and they'll just buy stuff at the grocery store. And for something like the AT, that's probably a lot better because it's just really hard to make all those meals ahead of time. So I would make the meal. I'm not sure if you can see my mouse, but I just would put them into Mylar bags. Then I would seal them with an oxygen absorber, and that worked out really good. It's odor-proof, waterproof, and everything was all well labeled because I kind of made everything months and months ahead of time. I wanted to know the packet that I was eating, what I'd be having for that day. So this was one of the towns that we sent our boxes to. And basically we would ship, food and, change of clothing so that we can send our stuff back home, our really dirty stuff back home. And so one of the things that we learned from the thru hikers was, their packs were a whole lot smaller than ours, and they can move a lot faster than us. Dave and I were carrying 7 days worth of food, and we figured out that they're only carrying 3 or 4 days worth of food. And so, for us, we had shipped, we have all these boxes full of 7 days worth of food. And so what we said was, okay, well, let's just take the box, take 3 or 4 days out of it, and then ship the rest of the food, down the trail. Then we'll get to more food later on. We'll travel less, use less calories, and travel easier. I think I misspoke there. Travel easier with less food, and just go get the food at the next post office. And that worked out really well. It really did. You kind of ship it to the post office. You ship it general delivery. And you can go there, and the boxes are just there waiting for you. Here is the town of Hancock, excuse me. Down at the end there, there's a great restaurant that we had burgers and salads and possibly a beer. I'm not sure, I can't remember, but we're looking for lots of calories. And over the course of 3 weeks, we probably lost maybe 5, maybe 7 pounds or so. This is Dave, and one of the things I want to point out to you was, for whatever reason, all these photographs, I'm on the left-hand side and Dave's on the right-hand side. It doesn't matter if I'm taking the picture or someone else is taking the picture. It's just, I'm not sure what happened there, but yeah. So here's a picture. You got to take pictures out of the back of the pickup truck. And if my kids are listening, kids, don't do this. You shouldn't be hitchhiking. So yeah, so this guy is the guy who gave us a ride, and he went out of his way to give us a ride to the trailhead. You know, the trail communities are so beautiful. They're so welcoming. They really do open their doors to people. And I really feel bad for the people who are hiking today, because the trail community probably won't be as receptive as they are even after the trails open up. But yeah, it was just great. So there's a view from Mount Ellen, very beautiful. There's a big storm coming through, and we just spent a lot of time just kind of watching these big showers kind of rolling on through. Very beautiful. And you know, we just had a blast the whole time. So we stayed up, you know, the ski resorts, they open their doors to the through hikers, and they don't lock the shelters. And this was Sugar Bush, and I just always love seeing the undercast, how that it kind of makes the little summits look like little islands in the ocean. Dave, you know, he loves to ham it up. He's really big into skiing. Yeah, you know, he said, you know, whenever we, you know, went on to some kind of ski trail, whenever we went on to some kind of, you know, there's some kind of a ski lift, he always hammed it up, you know, and I got a lot of pictures, and this is just one of many. He said, hey, Phil, after we're done with this, some winter, let's go to Vermont and go skiing, because, you know, the Long Trail kind of goes across all these ski resorts. And so he goes, let's just go skiing. And we actually did that in March, you know, just before everything got shut down because of the coronavirus. Yeah. So for me, I used a hammock. I wanted to do something different. I wanted to buy new gear and try new technology out. I figured that in Vermont, there's lots of trees, and there's lots of mud on the ground, and there's lots of rocks. And if there's big, heavy rains, that's where all the water goes. Yeah, I didn't want to have any kind of stream going through my tent. And it was just really was a great thing. I got, you know, it doesn't really save you much weight because it's really just a floating tent. I had a mosquito netting. My tarp was one of the fancy Dynamia, very ultralight material. I had quilts, but you know, it was just great. I slept very comfortably. I always thought that if I was in a hammock, that you'd be sleeping in cat-nose shape, and that you have back issues. I'm an older guy, 51 at the time. But in reality, what you do is that you sleep at an oblique angle, and your body's totally perfectly flat. And with the quilts on the bottom and the quilts on the top, I was wrapped up like a nice cocoon, nice and warm, nice and smooth. One of the things which I didn't really think about, you know, you always think about, you know, well, basically during the heavy windstorms, we had a remnant of a hurricane that came through. In fact, this is at the base of Stratton Mountain here. When the remnant of this hurricane came through, the trees were heaving back and forth and swaying. And in that hammock, I moved around a lot. It was kind of fun. Sometimes you'd be heaving up, sometimes you'd be heaving down, sometimes you'd be twisting from side to side. It was great. was a great ride. It was, yeah, I can't say enough about hammocks. If you ever wanted to try it, I'd say go for it. So the Green Mountain Club, they don't accept federal money for maintaining their trails. Therefore, they can do things the way that they want to. This is in an outhouse. Well, it's an outhouse without the house, so I guess it's a house. And basically what it is, it's a trash can on top of a box with a toilet seat drilled into the trash can. It's a composting toilet, not at all ADA compliant. And they put it out in a place that was very remote, so you would see someone coming towards you if they're coming towards you. And you could say, hey, I need a little privacy. It wasn't a problem. And you're in the northern part of the trail anyway, so there's not many people there. But you know, there was some of the outhouses we saw on the AT in the southern section, you know, they had a wheelchair ramp. And I'm all for making things ADA compliant, but the trail itself is not ADA compliant, but that's okay. I mean, hopefully this will open, hopefully if someone were to get to this part in the trail, hiking the AT on a wheelchair or something like that, you know, the outhouse would limit them. Trail crew, I can totally, you know, for me, I'm a trail person. I help organize trail trips. And I totally can see that it's easier, it was probably a lot easier just to come up, to drag an aluminum ladder through the woods and to bolt it to a rock face and have people climb up and down that. So yeah, there was almost like chutes and ladders. There'd be a lot of ladders going up, a lot of ladders going down. Some are made out of wood. There were like ramps going across, small steep drop-offs. So this is a beautiful picture of Camel's Hump. I did not take this. I found this on the web. But when I was there, it was all in the clouds. And when Dave and I were hiking it, I remember when we were kind of came up to the Camel's Hump, it was all clouded in, and then all of a sudden the clouds parted, and then there was this big rock face in front of us, and we were like looking at it like, oh my God, how's this going to work out? And then everything got all clouded over again. It actually turned out to be pretty easy. The trails were fine. Yeah, it's just sometimes when things kind of part that way, they look very daunting at that moment. And this is me summiting the top. This is Dave. You can see the valley. The winds were howling up there, so we put our windbreakers on. And there was a ridge runner up there, and she was telling us to keep off of the tundra, which is what we would have done anyways. And she was kind of telling us the history of Camel's Hump and the long trail. This is Bolton Valley. You hike through, you see a lot of farmlands when you're hiking the trail, and sometimes you actually hike through them. And this is Bolton Valley. It's very beautiful. Again, I'm on the left-hand side. So yeah, we pass a lot of marshes. And this is Mount Mansfield, and I did not take this picture. It was not a nice picture. I just didn't have a nice perspective as this to take it. So this is the chin of Mansfield. And Mansfield is a very interesting mountain. It's very beautiful. This was probably the scariest mountain for me to be on, because there's one part where you have to take your pack off and push it through a granite tunnel, but it's not a tunnel. It's like rock face on the left. It's a rock face on the right, because we're hiking northbound. Rock on the bottom, rock on the overhead, and then it looked like there's a sheer drop off on the left. I'm not really sure how it was, but my imagination was pretty crazy at that moment. It wasn't a problem. So Dave and I'm on the left-hand side. So this is looking east. For me, I live in Portland, Maine, and at the west end, and there's a point where I can look to the west, and I have the opposite view of this, where I can see Mount Washington, Mount Adams, Mount Madison. And so for me, I'm looking east, and I have this app. It's called Peak Finder. And it kind of labels all the summits. And I'm thinking, oh, my wife's on the other side. And I was kind of, just made this big smile on my face. Top of the notch, Smuggler's Notch. It rhymes. So yeah, we stayed here one night, and it was mouse infested. Excuse me. There were a lot of mice around, and they weren't very bashful. So for me, being on a hammock, it was very good. Dave, he set up his tent, and we kind of had to hang everything up. Some guys came in to talk to us, and I had my food bag on one of these picnic benches. And during that time, when we're chatting with them, some mouse ate a small hole through the bottom of the bag. I mean, they just were very aggressive. I mean, they're just very hungry. You can't blame them. They just want to survive. But we're all over the place. This is a lake that's on top of the Smuggler's Notch Lake, perhaps, maybe. So let's talk about Facebook. For me, I'm very active on Facebook. There's a lot of good stuff on Facebook. There really is. So I formed this group called the 2018 Longtail Hikers Group. And it was just a great way, it was a great community. It was a great way for people to connect, to share information, share their successes, tell you where the water is, talk about things that were going wrong. Some guy posted that he was injured on the side of a road, and that he needed a ride, and I'm like, oh, I know. And we have a list of trail angels, and so I kind of figured out where he was, and I kind of sent him a list of phone numbers, 3 or 4 people for him to call, and he was very appreciative. He later sent me a text saying that was very great. He was very gracious for what I had done. And incidentally, people, when Dave and I were hiking there later on, we saw the sign that he used. It was the sign said, "Injured hiker needs a ride to the hospital." So it was kind of fun to have that full circle. But it was just great. We had over 260 people, men and women of all ages, US, Canada, Mexico, England. And there's also a 2019 group and a 2020 group. And if you're a 2020 group, thank you for joining me. I posted this talk on that. Hope this is helpful to you. So there's an app for that, Guthook. I can't say enough things about Guthook. Guthook is a tool, it's an app, but it's a tool that is just one of the tools in the holster. You got to carry the map, you got to carry the compass, but if you can have an app that you can turn on, you can see exactly where you are, see exactly where the water source is in front or behind, where the shelter is. It's a real game changer. Sometimes the trails were poorly marked and were overgrown, and sometimes we're kind of questioning where we were. It was just great to be able to, and you're in a wooded area. You can't really look for a mountain to get bearings on. It was just great to pull out the app and say, aha, we are still on the trail. And during the day that we were hiking 20 miles, we came across these 2 women. One of the women was very experienced, the other was not, and too slow going. And they were they're feeling a little dehydrated. And we kind of told them about the app, in that had the app, they would have known that there is no water ahead because it's all dried out, and that they should go back a quarter mile to fill up with the water that was there. And they were very appreciative of that, and they downloaded the app, and they actually came into the campsite around 1:30 in the morning. Not sure why, because there was plenty of places around where they could have camped, but they just wanted to be at the shelter. Yeah, so the app, I highly recommend it, but it's a tool. Always carry a map and compass. Lightweight backpacking. So for me, I questioned everything I had, and I just wanted to have very lightweight gear. And so my total weight was around 18 pounds. And we carried, well, we started off with like 7 days worth of food. We had, it weighed 36 pounds. And we had bounce boxes that we sent, food and clothing. And things that we got right for the bounce boxes, and I fretted about this for quite a while, was that we got to for every time when we got to the post office, it was open. It wasn't on a weekend, on a Saturday afternoon or Sunday when they'd be closed. I just want to say one thing here. Hey, Bill, if you're listening, someone looking at the more button, there's something about more that has to be, oh, nope, okay. Anyhow, that was someone who wanted to chat, but I can't chat. Later, perhaps. Okay, moving on. So when we're coming into Johnsonville, my knee started having some major issues. Yeah, I'm a runner, so sometimes I get these muscle imbalances, and I praise the physical therapist because they really do put you back together. And I love the education that you get with them. So my knee started acting up, and and so I called Johnson Hardware Store. There's a guy there, Walker. I'm not sure if you're listening, Walker, but thank you. I thanked him back then. I called him. I said, "Hey, he was very active in Facebook, and he was promoting, the Johnson Hardware Store, which had a lot of outdoor gear, and and he was very active on Facebook, in a very good, positive way, helping people like me, and others. He was not only promoting his business, but he was promoting the whole Johnson area, because he knew that they could really that trail town would benefit from them, from the thru hikers, excuse me. So anyhow, so he recommended we stay at this place called Nye's Green Farm, and we went there, and they were like, well, we won't be around, but we know that you have to go in town to your physical therapist appointment, and so they gave us the white convertible there. And we hadn't known them for about 5 minutes, but the trail community, they just really embrace the thru hikers. So I was very grateful for them. It was just great to have them be so trusting like that. Shelters. This is another one of the shelters. This is probably north of Johnson. I can't remember the shelter name, but it was nice. We were just for passing through. So yeah, marshes, mud puddles, moss, bog bridges. So this is where we're going. I forget the summit that we're on, but yeah, we were heading over to Jay Peak, and this is where we came from. And this is great because you can really see Mount Ellen, Camel's Hump, the chin of the anyhow, the chin, and it just shows all the mountains that we went over. This is us, Dave and I, on Jay Peak again. On the left-hand side, someone else is taking a picture. We don't know, but yeah, it was beautiful weather up there. The views from Jay Peak, beautiful. I wish I could do it. I wish I could do this again this summer, but can't do it this summer. So this was probably the hardest day. The hardest day. We probably had a day and a half left to hike, and about 2 miles from this sign, my knee started screaming at me. And I was slow going, and Dave said, "Let's just take it slow. We have plenty of time. The weather's fine. Just take our time, get to the next shelter." And I had a good filter on my mouth, and Dave didn't hear a lot of things I was saying. And yeah, it was just hard. But, he said, Phil, I'll do everything at this shelter, or once we get to the campsite. And even though he offered that, I still hung my own bear bag, even though I hated that. I did it every night, including this night, even though Dave would have done it. Yeah, it was just was great. So anyhow, so I got in my hammock. I did all the massages that the physical therapist had taught me in Johnson. And the nice thing about the hammock is that you can scoot your bottom to one side and you can be sitting up and writing a journal, or you can scoot yourself to the other side and have your legs easily elevated, and then massage the knee to have all the fluids drain back into the lymphatic system. Again, part of the education, going to physical therapist, you learn about the lymphatic system. Anyhow, and the next day, my knee was good to go. I felt great. It was awesome. So we finished hiking the long trail on September 29th at 10 o'clock. My wife, she was my girlfriend at the time, soon to be fiance. She met us there, and she came, and she was always very present with us. I'm very grateful for Susie. She gave us all kinds of great treats, Ben and Jerry's ice cream, and yeah, she was very great. Us at the northern terminus. Yeah, on the other side of that is Canada. All right, questions. I'm gonna pull up this chat thing.
So we have a couple questions, Phil.
Okay.
Can you see them? So there's one on chat and it says, is there a Wi-Fi on trail cell? Wi-Fi and cell service, I guess.
Oh, yeah, there is no Wi-Fi, but most of the restaurants and inns and bed and breakfasts, they all have Wi-Fi. Everyone has Wi-Fi. I have Verizon, and I had pretty good service most of the time. I was able to get a text message out to my wife most nights. Dave, he didn't have Verizon. I think he had Cricket, which is it's a part of AT&T, and sometimes he had service. More often than not, he did have service, but there's some times when he did not.
Okay, we have another one from Kathy. She says, I've read there are not many towns close to the trail and would love to hear how hard, easy it was to resupply. How often did you do it? How close, far were you from the towns? How easy, difficult was it?
Yeah. So in Manchester Center, we were able to walk to town, and that was another learning moment for Dave and I. For us, we kind of looked at the trail and we thought, oh, we'll just beeline it right for the town. There's a little sub trail here that goes straight forward. It's about, it's about a 3-mile hike in. Either we could hike 3 miles into town and then we'll be in town, or we'd hike 3 miles to the road and then hitchhike in. And so we thought it'd be easier just to hike to town, even though we'd be hiking 3 miles that weren't part of the long trail. It was really not a problem. It just meant that we hiked 6 miles that were not part of the long trail. And when you're counting miles, when you're counting and you're trying to be as efficient as you can be, what we could have done was to have just hiked to the route that Manchester Center is. I forget what the route number is, and then hitchhiked in. Hitchhiking really wasn't an issue. We went to Manchester Center, Hancock, and then Johnson, and then we moved out one of the bounce boxes to another town. I forget what the town name is. It was in the Bolton Valley area. Hitchhiking wasn't a problem. Everyone was very accommodating. Yeah, when we're going into Hancock, we hitchhiked. Some young guy gave us a ride, and and then hitchhiking back to the trailhead wasn't a problem. In Hancock, yeah, well, for that we were staying at the bed and breakfast, and so someone gave us a ride there easily. So I guess we only hitchhiked once.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Anyhow, but
Okay.
from what I hear, no one else had issues with hitchhiking. And while I'm on this concept, I just wanted to put a plug in for one of my friends' Facebook group pages. It's like a women's long trail group. So you can, if you're a woman, I think the woman asked that question. You can ask women in that group in a nice, safe environment and ask whether or not they had any problems, because I'm a guy. Okay, next question.
So let's see if I can say this. So Odriska, I probably didn't say that correctly, but asks about the two apps or websites you mentioned and wants you to repeat those.
Yeah, so the app that I used was Guthook, and that's what pretty much the industry standard is for hiking the trail. It's called GU. Let me go back to it. So you'll have it here. Guthook, Guthook. Costs a small fee. Very good. The Green Mountain Club, they also have their own app, and I believe it's free, but I'm not sure. I can't speak for it, so I'm not going to say anything about it. And then the other thing that I used was the Facebook group page, and there's one for the 2020 group page. It's called the Long Trail Hikers Class of 2020, and I have it set up so that if you're a 2020 person, you can easily migrate to the 2019 group, or you can easily migrate to the 2018 group and ask people who did it last year, what did you think? For me, I'm trying to make it so that's big learning culture of sharing, and what Facebook really should be about. Just community. So yeah, so if you join the 2020 group, you can automatically join the 2019 group. If you join the 2019 group, you can go to the 2018 group. I'm sure that they would love if you ask a 2018 person, that they probably love to hear it. And then also the other long trail. Okay, go on.
All right, let's see. So we have someone asking about public transportation from the northern terminus. You know if there is any?
I don't believe there is, and that's probably the hardest one for it. Again, you should join the 2019 group page and ask people from last year. For me, my wife met us there, so I had the easy button. So, but yeah, definitely ask the 2019 and even ask the 2018 folks. And in the Green Mountain Club, sorry, let me answer this more thoroughly. The Green Mountain Club, they have a Facebook group page, the GMC. I can't remember what the rest of it is, but it has GMC in it. Then there's also another long trail, which I'm also the admin of, called the Long Trail Hikers group page, and that's just everyone and anyone who's done it. And then there's a list. If you're a member of the 2020 group page, there's a list of trail angels there and businesses that will give you rides. It's marked under the announcements. I'm putting a plug in for the 2020 group. So yeah, if you look under the announcements, there's like a little thing there which has a list of all the trail angels and even some people who will give you rides. And I'm sure if you have the Guthook app, there'll be businesses that are also advertised there who will give you rides to and from the town, or from the northern terminus. Next question.
Okay, we got a lot of questions here, Phil. So, and we're getting them on chat as well as Q&A, but that's okay. So, Jane, maybe it's Jane. Okay, Jane asks, any reason you choose Hancock Vermont post office. It's so modern now. Um,
Yeah, the reason why I chose Hancock, I mean, there's like, I think that if I'd done things differently, there's another town where the Yellow Deli is. I may have gone to that one, but I forget the name of that town. I should know it. But I, I, I basically came up with a spreadsheet. I'm an engineer, so I love spreadsheets. And I came up with a spreadsheet, and I kind of said, okay, let's like refuel every 7 days. And I kind of said, okay, here, here, here. And then I realized that if I'm leaving on a Saturday, every 7 days, it'd be risking it getting to the post office on the wrong day. So then I kind of buried it a little bit. But yeah, I chose Hancock, not knowing about it. But having said that, I'm glad that I went there. They were just very appreciative. It was a cute little town. But if you're looking for the Yellow Deli experience, it's not there. Next question.
okay, so Kathy would like to know the name of the women's group. If you could repeat it that you mentioned previously.
Yeah. I don't have. Sorry, bear with me. I want to say it's the Women's of the Long Trail. Yes, it's not coming up. The problem is that everyone has these different names, and it doesn't come up. If you're a member of the 2020 group, I will post that on the 2020 group. In fact, I'll post it on all of the different group pages, the GMC and the Long Trail. I told my friend Sarah, who was organizing it, that I wouldn't be doing that anymore because it just seems kind of weird as a guide in promoting this women's group. But I will do that because that's what I like to do, to promote and help people. I'll take that for action.
Okay, thanks, Phil. And Donna would like to know the name of the app that locates the mountain peaks.
Oh yeah, that's a great one. It's called, and it costs a small amount. It's called Peak Finder. I'm not sure if you can see it. No. Yeah, that was useless. Excuse me. Yeah, so Peak Finder. It costs a small amount, but it just works wherever you are in the world. You have to tell it where you're going to be, then it kind of zeroes in on those, and it works pretty well. It's kind of clunky, but I'm sure that as the technology gets better, it's just going to be scarier. Just knowing exactly where you are and all that. But yeah, it's very, very good. And you can overload. You can take pictures like what I did, or you can do it without the picture thing. Highly recommended. It's worth it.
I know it's on iOS on Apple devices. I don't know about Android devices.
Okay. Yep, can't speak for the Androids.
Right. Okay, so Rob wants to know if there's anything you do differently and if you have any plans for another long hike.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I am section hiking the AT. I'm doing that with my buddy Dave, and I'm also doing what I can do up here with another Dave, local Dave. I would love to do the JMT. It's a nice short trail. I'd love to do the AT as a whole, and maybe I will. I'm not sure about the PCT. It just seems like hiking through the desert just seems challenging. But yeah, I want to be spending more time outside. My wife and I are going to be doing some canoeing, and I wouldn't mind doing a long canoe trip with her, maybe a long bike ride with her. So yeah, I just want to be outside moving. This whole COVID thing is kind of claustrophobic, but I'm making do. Next question.
Right. Okay, so Lauren says it might be nice to share the Green Mountain Club's Indoor Peak panels, which are an excellent resource for learning more about the hiking the long trail. And there's a YouTube link. I don't know, perhaps you could post that also.
Okay, so there's a Green Mountain Club, what now? Say that again, Bill?
It says end-to-ender panels. It's in the chat.
Oh, yeah, the under, and, um, yeah, okay, well, actually, the Green Mountain Club did have a webinar about a month or so ago, and I promoted that. And then there is the ender guide, which I didn't, I have it. But I am always trying to promote anything that Green Mountain Club has. And if you're a member of the 2020 group, or if you want me to help promote something, let me know. I'm always, I'm like always a big fan of making something and an announcement on the Facebook page so that people would come in and see that thing first, because there's so much good information out there. So, all right, next question.
Okay, so Juliana asks, what did you take for gear other than the hammock?
What I take for gear? Well, the gear, for new, well, I bought a new backpack. I use a hyperlight backpack. I'll pull up my gear list. Everything's all weighed because it's important. Excuse me. I had quilts from Enlightened Equipment, very light stuff. I carried a container and a spatula for cleaning out my bowl. I carried a down jacket I got from where did I get it from? Yeah, ask me a question. If you're on Facebook, it's just really jackets, just really gear, and wind pants, raincoat, socks, undies, bandanas, just the typical stuff, really. But I just went and I bought lighter stuff. Yeah, I'm not sure. But yeah, you're always welcome to ask me questions on Facebook, or if you want to send me an email on the main AMC website. I'm the Trails person there, and I don't know what my Trails email address is. It's like trails@mainamc.org, I think. Anyhow, just go to the main AMC site, and you can find my AMC. You can see my email address there. Next question.
So Zoe wants to know, what made you decide to hike northbound rather than southbound?
I wanted to, couple of reasons. I want to, Dave and I did a lot of training. I'm a big runner, but for this year, what I did for training was I hiked around the local mountain that we have here. It's Bradbury Mountain. It's a small mountain, a couple hundred feet high, with a big backpack full of seltzer water. And so what Dave and I thought was to go northbound was that we wanted our bodies to adjust and to adapt and to grow. And we also, it just seemed to be, well, okay, so I am from Massachusetts, and it just seemed to be the way to be going, to be hiking away from Massachusetts. Why would I want to hike to Massachusetts? Just kidding. My sisters are probably online. I love Massachusetts, but it just seemed more natural to be hiking north.
Okay, thanks. So Susan asks, so she says, with all the rain, is Vermont Long Trail prone to thunderstorms? Is there truth to the hiking poles are lightning rods story?
Well, I think that that because you're in a big tree forest, for me, I don't really know about the lightning poles and the lightning rods for the poles. I can't speak for that. I'm sure if you're near a tree, the spark would go everywhere, and you would be a lightning rod too. So yeah, I'm sorry, I can't really help you with that one. But Yes, there was a lot of rain. We probably had, we went in September. There was a drought going on in most of July and August. And by the time we got there, all the hurricanes were ramping up. And by the time they got to where we were in September, they were just sort of big rains. And so we probably had we had 2 heavy rains, and the rest were light rain.
Okay, and I think that's, let's see. Oh, we have one more. Rob asked, how busy was the Long Trail in September once it split from the AT?
It really wasn't that busy at all. I knew my friend Lisa, who's on the Long Trail group. Oh, sorry, my Facebook acquaintance Lisa. She was ahead of us, but yeah, there really wasn't that many people on the trail. It was just much less density. We probably passed a couple of people every now and then. We passed the southbounders, and it's actually kind of interesting. There was 2 young women who were hiking southbound, and we were just about done with our trail. And they were probably on day 1 or 2 of their trail hiking southbound. Actually, I would say day 2 or 3, and they were kind of complaining about all the mud, and because there's a lot of mud there, you know, and complaining about how that they've already gone through all their socks. And Dave and I just kind of looked at them and were like, just get used to wet feet. And that is a big thing, that you're going to have wet feet. I carried 3 pairs of socks with me. One which I wore every day, one which I used in bed, and then another one I just carried because I wanted the extra insurance. Not sure why, but yeah, just your feet are going to be wet. They're going to be muddy. I went, just after a drought, and sometimes it felt like quicksand. You'd be almost like wading through it, and you wouldn't really know it.
Okay.
Next question.
Okay, we have one more. Odriska asked, how long did you say it took you to get from start to end? So what was the duration?
21 days.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. I think there are no more questions. So, so I'd like to thank everyone for attending this, and certainly thank you, Phil, for presenting. It's very interesting.
Thank you. Awesome. Thank you.
As Phil mentioned earlier, we do have Kerry Kish is going to go talk about his Florida Trail hike next Wednesday, if you're interested in that. And then the following Wednesday, we have Katie from the AMC and Peter Roderick, who's kind of does trails in the Maine woods for the Maine chapter, and Phil again. To talk about a kind of a trail maintenance workshop. So if you're interested in that, please attend. Again, thank you very much. And
can you interrupt one more thing, Phil? Yeah, sorry. I just want to put a plug in. I'm the trail chairs for the AMC, and we're always looking for people to help us with trail work. This year's a little weird. I'm not sure how it's going to evolve, but if you want to give back to this beautiful community, if you go on to the Maine AMC website, you can see my email address. There's actually a place where you can fill out a form, where you can give me your email address and phone number, whatever you're comfortable with. But we're always looking for help. Thank you. Sorry, Bill.
All right. No problem. Good. And Phil's a lot of fun to do trail work with. I've done it with him. So, all right. Thanks, everyone. Hopefully we'll see you next week. Bye.